So after you get saved, it becomes a warfare, right? And through enough battles, you start to see your own Achilles heel. So you know your Achilles heel. They don't think you know, but you know. Because you've went and got enough counseling, either through preaching, sermons, friends, family, whatever. And even the lost will say, well, I remember going through something and my mom said something. I said, oh, okay. I remember going through something else and somebody, a coworker, said, well, the problem is this. I said, oh, yeah, I didn't see that. And so after enough battles, you start to see your Achilles heel. And you know the Freemasons, the Jesuits, the psychologists, they're all studying you, right? How they can take you out. And they don't even know why they're so obsessed with you, but it's just God refining. God is refining you and to make you more holy and more set apart. The flesh is not even real. Anything you do in the energy of the flesh is not even real. And so God has to cut out the fake reality to move you to the real. And so when you know your Achilles heel, you've kind of you've narrowed down all your weaknesses. You know, when you're playing I played soccer in high school, and I played football after school when I was younger. So if you were managing a team, okay, and you watched your team in practice and you said, okay, practice is the simulation. So we've got a weakness in our defense. Somewhere in our defense is a weakness. And so you know that weakness right there, that's the open door. And even though you've tried to fix it your whole life, you know it's still there because of the way you were raised, right? You can call it the shadow work, you can call it a trigger, you can call it anything you want. So you know that weakness is still there. So you have an Achilles heel, and if the enemy can get in the door via that Achilles heel, you know they win. Now a lot of times, because you've won so many battles, you go into pride, right? Well, I can go into this and I know they're going to attack this Achilles heel, and I've protected it with a shield, and even when they attack it, I'm going to be strong. And then they hit you with this. And as they're hitting you with these darts, right? Take away your peace, call you names, belittle you, dehumanize you, abuse, and all that stuff. And you're saying, I'm not going to put up with this. And then when you pull away, then they pull you back in. It's just a wile e coyote. They're just testing what works. They're seeing what works. So this is you. And they're hitting you with darts, in the natural, whatever. They're hitting you with a bunch of things. And so they're trying to find that Achilles heel. And if you have any armor, and so what happens is you don't even want to fight. Okay, so here's a good example. So this is you with all the power. And this is them that are weak. They're just little weaklings, really. So they're trying to attack you and find your Achilles heel. And you adjust, because this is your Achilles heel. So when they come at you from this side, you adjust. You keep your Achilles heel hidden from them, right? And so that spiritual attack, they're trying to find that Achilles heel, and you're not letting them. And my Achilles heel, I'll just say it, I'm not afraid to take away your peace. If I had peace in my home, I remember when I was going through a divorce, a friend of mine, he said, well, how'd you make it through that? I said, what do you mean, man? When I got her out of my house, I had instant peace. And I can work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. I can eat beans and rice. So when you remove this attacker out of your earshot, eye shot, whatever, you have your peace back. And as long as you have your peace, you can overcome anything. How'd you go through that? What do you mean? I just went up here and I worked hard. I got the best lawyer in Greensboro, and I let the lawyer handle it. I don't have to I let the lawyer do it. If you try to be your own lawyer, you lose your peace. You just let the lawyer handle it. And so as you're fighting, and so as the lawyer's handling that divorce, you're just over here chilling and you're going about your working your 2 jobs, banking some money, investing some money, remodeling, whatever you're doing, and you're just chilling. Because there's always a mediator. And so let's say you do go through a divorce or something, and here's this person fighting this person. Jesus is the middleman between God and man, so it's best to follow the pattern of heaven where there's a mediator. So to always have a mediator or a lawyer. And one time I had something happen with a renter and had to go to court. Instead of hiring a lawyer, I talked to the magistrate or somebody. I said, can we just get a mediator? This is stupid, you know? I'm not going to try to get money out of them, or I can't remember what it was. They might have been trying to get the deposit or something like that. I said, they can have it. I don't care. Let's just have a mediator. I don't even remember. It's been so long, I can't even remember. Let's just get a mediator and solve this with a mediator. And so they brought in a mediator and it was solved. If you bring in a middleman, it gets rid of the friction. Because Jesus is the mediator between God and man. So I've battled so many times, I know my Achilles heel. And if I talk to a sister in Christ, they know my Achilles. The reason I know my Achilles heel, because I've had some sisters in Christ tell me my Achilles heel, and they say, that's your weakness. You want to save them, but you're not Jesus. You can't fix them. That's my Achilles heel. I always try to fix them. And it goes back to my childhood. You wanted to fix your mom or your sister, your family. You saw them going down a path of destruction and you wanted to fix them, but you couldn't fix them. So when you got older, you wanted to fix your spouse who was acting stupid, you know. You knew they were headed to the path of destruction, but you're not God. They have to go through that process. They have to learn their lessons, and they have to fail, and it has to hurt, because if it don't hurt, then they're going to keep doing it, and it has to hurt. You sit back and you say, well, okay, I know what's going to happen. I have a spiritual gift. I can actually see the future before it happens because I see the patterns everywhere. And I'm telling you what's going to happen, but okay, it is what it is. What's the gist of the story? All these battles, I know my Achilles heel. I know my weaknesses. And it's best to know your weaknesses. And if you're in a battle, a spiritual battle, don't do it by yourself. Call a brother, a spiritual brother. Call a spiritual sister. Talk to a coworker on the break or something. Or talk to your boss. Say, what do you think is going on here? Go to a random pastor. Say, hey, here's $20. Can I sit down and talk to you? I just need your advice on something. I'll pay you $50 an hour just to give me advice on something. But usually just call them up on the phone. They say, this don't sound right, you know. And a lot of times, if you're fighting a demonic spirit, when the person who's trying to get in the door or whatever, tell them you called a pastor and watch the spirit in them go crazy. If you are dealing with somebody who's trying to get in agreement with you that you're unsure about, say, well, I called this pastor to ask advice. The demon in that person will go off because their game of isolation is not working. Because if they can't isolate you, they can't win. And if anybody has come from a cult background, the cults, they all end up into money, and ends up into a sex cult, money cult, and it goes even deeper. The rabbit hole can go deeper. Any kind of cult, it always ends up that way, because you can see it in Galatians 5:19, 20, 21, and it actually leads to death. People are fighting. It's a Jerry Springer show. And if you see any kind of Jerry Springer show, you withdraw yourself because you want peace. And if you're thinking about marrying somebody, if she loves peace and you love peace, y'all can get along. But if she loves Jerry Springer or you love Jerry Springer, something's wrong. That's a red flag, The jig is up, If anybody starts to act in the Jerry Springer mindset, the jig is up, you know. And that's the low frequency, low vibration, flesh mind. I can use the world's terminology, and I can also use the biblical terminology. I can say you're going to reap what you sow, or I'm going to say karma's going to get you. But if I use the world, it's because I know I have people listen to me. They don't hear some things I say, but if I use their worldly terms, then they can hear what I'm saying. But if I say it's the flesh versus spirit, they don't know what that means. And I'll say, okay, it's Jerry Springer versus peace. They can hear that, you know.